Hello dear grade 6 children. Today we are going to learn the 5th lesson of the science textbook, that is light and vision. Now you must be wondering, what do we have to learn about light? Because we use light in our day-to-day lives. But I am sure after discussing this lesson, you will learn a lot more about light. So what do you learn about light so far, children? I'm sure you remember in the second lesson, we learned that light as a non-matter, which means an energy. So what are the other things that we are going to learn about light? Let's go and see. So these are the topics that we are going to learn under this lesson. So we are going to learn how can we see. Now you all know that to see something we need light. But how do we see things with light? We are going to learn that under this topic. Now next we are going to learn about sources of light. There we are going to learn the sources of light means the things that produce light or things that emit light. And the third topic is transmission of light through objects. There we are going to learn the light travels through different objects in different ways. Okay? So light rays and light beams. Now light rays, light beams, you must have heard of these terms before. We are going to learn more about what are light rays and light beams too. And finally, we are going to learn about applications of light. There we are going to learn how can we use light in our day-to-day lives in different instances. So let's get started. The first topic we are going to discuss about is how can we see? How can we see, children? You all know during the daytime we can see so many things because of the daylight or because of sunlight. During the night time, what happens? Do we have the sunlight? We don't have. So we have to switch on lights, or we have to use torch or any other objects that give us light. Okay? So during the daytime, we can see things clearly. But we switch on the lights to see them at night. What is the reason? If we close our eyes, we cannot see anything even during the daytime or at night with lights on. Now let's see, during the daytime, we can see things clearly because the light falls onto them. Even during the night time, we can see things clearly with the help of the light bulbs. But what will happen if you close your eyes? Even if the light bulb is on, even if the daylight present during the daytime, we can't see anything if we close our eyes. Why does that happen, children? I will explain you. Now let's see. During the daytime, we can see things with the help of the sunlight. So, during the daytime, because of the sunlight present, we can see things. So, what actually happens, children? Let me give this example. Let's say there's this chair. How do we see this chair, children? So we can see this chair because sunlight or the daylight falls onto this chair, right? So if this is our eye, we can see things because the light falls onto this object, and then again that light bounces back from the object and reaches your eye. Okay? So the sunlight falls onto this object, and from the object it reflected, right? It bounces back and reaches your eye. Okay, children? So this is why what will happen if there is no light? You can't see this object. That is because there's no light to fall on this object. At the same time, if you close your eye, even though the sunlight present, if you close your eyes, you can't see this object again. That is because even though the sunlight present, even though the sunlight falls onto this object, these rays cannot enter your eyes if you close your eyes. Understand, children? So it's very clear, even though daylight present, maybe during the night time, the night lamp present, if you close your eyes, still you can't see any object. Okay, children? So which means to see something, it's very clear, we need the light as well as your eyes. Am I correct, children? I hope you understood this part. Now to understand what we learned better, we are going to do this activity. What is the activity? finding what requirements should be fulfilled to have vision, to see something, what are the requirements there should be. Okay? So what are the things we need to do this activity, children? Look at this one. We need a cardboard box with a lid. Okay? And we need a coin, and we need a torch and a small object. Okay, like we can use a dice, or maybe a flower we can use. Some small object we need to put into this box. Okay, let's see, write down this one. Cardboard box. Coin, we need a coin. We need a torch. And then we need a small object. Okay, children, we need a cardboard box. We have to find it with a lid. Okay, we need a coin, a torch, and a small object. Now let's see how to do this activity. So the method, first of all, look at the diagram. Even before I explained you, when we record a certain experiment, when we write down an experiment, we have to draw a diagram. It's better if we can draw a diagram so that we can understand very well what we are going to do. And at the same time, when we draw a diagram, we have to label the diagram. Okay? So what do we have to do? Cut a hole at the center of the lid similar in size to a 50-cent coin. Right? So this is the hole that you are going to cut on the lid. Okay? So you are going to, if you are going to use a 1 rupee coin, this hole should be a little smaller than the 1 rupee coin, so that we should be able to cover this hole with the coin that we are going to use. Okay, children? Then cut another small hole on one side of the box as shown in the figure. Look at this one. Right, on the lid side, the large hole present, a small hole present in the other side. Okay? Now keep the small object in the middle of the box. Now I told you, you can use a dice, or maybe a flower, okay? Maybe a small toy you can use. It's better if you can use a bright colored one. Okay, children? So what you have to do now, you have to keep the small object in the box, inside the box, in the middle of the box, and you have to close the lid. Understand? Then close the hole on the top of the lid with 1 rupee coin. Right? You have to place the object inside the box, you have to close the lid, and then this hole should be closed with the coin. Then what do you have to do? Let's see. First, observe the object through the hole at the side of the box. Now what you have to do is, now the object is inside and you have to close the lid. You have to cover this hole with the coin. Now you have to check through this hole whether you can see the object. Okay, children, check whether you can see the object through this small hole. Then what are you going to do? Now the next time you are going to remove the coin. Okay? Then now take away the coin and direct the light of the torch through the hole. You are going to remove the coin. Then you are going to direct the torch light through this hole. And at the same time, now you have to observe through this other hole again and check whether you can see. Right? Then observe the object through the hole at the side of the box again. Record your observations. After doing this one, you can ask one or few of your friends to look through the hole, and we can do the same experiment again using with some of our friends too. Okay? So we'll do this activity in the lab now. Right, children. Now we are going to do this activity to show that light is needed to see something clearly, right? So I told you what are the things we need to do this activity, and this is the cardboard box I mentioned you about. Here you all can see there are 2 holes, one here and the other one on the lid. This is the lid. Okay. So first of all, what we have to do, children, we have to put some object into this box. So here I have a small cluster of flowers. I am going to put it inside and close the lid of the box. And then I am going to cover this hole, the large hole, with the 2 rupee coin. And then what we have to do is we have to look through the other small hole and check whether we can see the object. First of all, I will check. Right, I can't see anything. It's all dark inside. Check whether you all can see, children. Can you all see anything, children? You also can't see. I'm sure you can't see anything. Now what we have to do is, as I explained you all before, I am going to remove this coin and I am going to direct torch light to this box. Right, first of all, I'll check whether I can see anything. Right, I can see the flower petals, children. Check whether you all can see. Right, now you all also can see the flower petals, I hope. Okay, children? Right, even though you can't see the whole flower, you can see the red color, which means you can see part of the flower. Right, children? So after doing this activity, it's very clear. Can you see without light? You cannot. It's very clear that in order to observe or in order to see something very clearly, we have to have light. So did you see what happened, children? What did I do in the lab? Do you remember what I did? I'm sure you remember. So we used this box. There were 2 holes. On the lid, there was a large hole, and compared to that hole, a small hole was present in one side of the box. So what did we do in the first instance? You remember, I used a red color flower there, right? So I placed the flower inside the box and closed the lid, and I covered this large hole with the coin. Then when I was observing through this small hole, I could not see anything, right? In the second instance, I removed the coin and I directed torchlight through this large hole, and when I was observing again, I could see the petals of the flower very clearly. Okay, children, we will write under that observations. Right. Let's write. When the large hole is covered with the coin, the object in the box cannot be seen when looked through the other hole. When the coin is removed and torchlight is directed the object can be seen clearly. Right. Okay. When the large hole is covered with the coin, the object in the box cannot be seen when looked through the other hole. Right? When the coin is removed and torchlight is directed, the object can be seen clearly. Okay, children? So after doing this activity, what is the conclusion that we can come up with, children? You all know, after doing an experiment, finally we have to come to a decision, and that is known as the conclusion. Okay, So after doing this entire experiment or this activity, what is the conclusion that you can come up with? It's very clear. We can't see. The first instance, we cannot see the object inside the box because there is no light. Okay? But in the second instance, what we did was we directed torchlight towards the box through the large hole. Then we could see the object clearly. Okay? So after doing this activity, it's very clear that light is needed to see something very clearly. Let's write down that. The conclusion is the light is needed to see something, clearly. Right? The light is needed to see something clearly. So this is why during the night time, when there is no daylight, when there is no sunlight, we have to obtain light with different methods. We can use light bulbs, we can use candles. In some areas where no electricity is present, sometimes they use candles or they use kerosene lamps. There are other different methods. Okay, children? So when you go on camping, how do you get light, children? You might light a bonfire, right? So there are different ways we can obtain light when there's no daylight. Okay? However, after doing this activity, it's very clear that light is a needed factor to see something clearly. Okay? So apart from light, are there any other things that we need to see something clearly? We already discussed that, but let's go and see this too. So is only light enough to see an object? Are there any other needs to be completed to see an object clearly? We already discussed this. So there's another activity that we all can do at the moment. Now, right now, you all can do this activity with me. Okay? So what do we have to do? Go to a place with plenty of light. Then unfold your hand. You have to unfold your hand and then now observe the lines on your palm well. So when you look at your palms, you can see your fingers, right? You can see the lines on the palm. You can see them very clearly. Okay. So if you are at a place with plenty of light, you can see all these details very clearly. Then what do you have to do? Then close your eyes and keep the hand unchanged. What you have to do is you have to keep your palms as it is, and then you have to close your eyes. Then what will you observe? Here, can you see the same observations which you had when the eyes were open? You cannot. Why does that happen, children? That is because now you did not change the place. You did not change the object. Now objects were your palms. Earlier, with plenty of light present, you were looking at your palms and you could see very clearly what was on your palm, your fingers, the lines on the palm. You could see everything clearly. Okay, and the color of the skin, you can see every single detail very clearly. But when you close your eyes, you can't see anything. This time we did not change the place, which means we are still in the place with plenty of light. And the object is also there. But why can't we see? That's because we closed our eyes. So even the object is there, even if plenty of light is present in the environment, if we can't see, if we close our eyes or if we can't see, still we can't see the object. Okay, children? So even though you close your eyes, the hand still gets light. Then why didn't you see the lines on the palm which you observed when your eyes were open? To have a good vision, not only light, but also the eye is important. Okay, children? So earlier during the first experiment, what happened? Even though we could observe, our eyes are opened, but still because light was not there, we could not observe things clearly. So after doing this experiment, one thing is clear, the light is needed to see something clearly. So after doing this activity, what was clear, children? The light was always there, but we could not see anything because we closed our eyes. right? So by doing this activity, it's very clear, not only light, we have to have our eyes too to see something clearly. Okay, so the main factors which are needed to see are a source of light and the eye, right? A source of light. So what is a source of light? We are going to learn next about that, right? So the main factors which are needed to see are source of light and the eye. Those are the two main factors we need to see something clearly. So we can't see clearly in the dark. That is because there's no source of light. There's no enough light in the darkness during the night time, right? Even like during the daytime, if you go into a dark room, you can't see clearly because there's no light. There's no source of light. But let's consider about some blind people. They can't see clearly. Even if they go to a bright place, they can't see clearly. Not only that, when people get old, what happens, children? Their sight, their eyes become very weak, and then again they can't see clearly. Okay, so not only a source of light, you have to have eyes. Not just eyes, the eyes have to be healthy eyes to see something, right? That is why you always have to consider about the health of your eyes. You should not sit in front of the television or the computer for too long. This is why sometimes your parents must be shouting at you, don't sit in front of the TV or the computer. This is the reason. You have to maintain the health of your eyes to see things clearly. Okay, children? Right. Now we are going to learn what is the meaning of a source of light. Let's go see. Right. Our next topic is sources of light. What is the meaning of sources of light, children? Sources of light means any type of object or anything that emits light. Okay? So objects which emit light are known as sources of light. So what are the light sources or sources of light, children? Remember, there are two types of light sources. What are they? Artificial sources of light and natural sources of light. So natural sources of light in the environment, there are sometimes we can see some objects, they emit the light. Okay, what are the examples, children? We'll write down. First we'll write there are two types of light sources. Natural sources of light. And artificial sources of light. Artificial sources of light. Okay. So what are the natural sources of light, children? How do we get light? We can get by sun. Sun emits light. Okay. Stars also emit light. What else? You have seen some animals like fireflies. Fireflies also emit light. So animals, plants, they all are coming under natural things. Okay, so we can write here firefly. Right? So those are some natural sources of light. Understand? What are the artificial sources of light? So most of the time during the daytime, we see things using the sunlight. Okay, because sun is a good source of light. So during the daytime, we use sunlight to see things. But during the night time, what happens? There's no sunlight. So how do we see things? We can use artificial sources of light then. Okay. So what are the artificial sources of light? We can write light bulb. But don't write just light bulb. If the light bulb is switched off, it's not a source anymore. Right? Because it cannot emit light. So we will write lighted bulb, right? Lighted candle, then lighted lamps, right? These are the examples, some of the examples for artificial sources of light. So it's very clear, the source of light means something, any object or any place or object, can be an animal or plant too, right? That emits light. So when it consider about these things that emit light, we have to learn about some other topic too, right? This is luminous and non-luminous objects. Now, these are new words for you all children. I'm sure you haven't learned about luminous and non-luminous objects before. So what is the meaning of a luminous object, right? We'll see. Now, you know, we can't see anything we enter a dark room, right? But if we light a bulb or a candle, we will be able to see the candle and the bulb as well as the other objects in the room. Okay, children? Let's say that we enter a room, right? Let's say we enter the bedroom. So bedroom has the bed and there must be a table, right? Or a stool or maybe a chair, right? The cupboards are there. So can we see anything in the darkness? We can't see any of them. But what will happen if we switch on the light bulb? Then you can see the light bulb emitting light. At the same time, you can see all the other objects too. Okay, children? But without the help of the light bulb, without the light emitted by the light bulb, can you see any of these things? You can't see any of these things. Okay, children? So the reason is that the light emitted by the candle or the bulb enters our eyes. Okay, so even earlier I explained you how this happens. Let's see. So if there's a room, then the light bulb is just there, but it's not lit, right? So if there are different objects, when we light this bulb, what happens? If we stand here, if this is our eye, so when we light the bulb, this light from the bulb falls on the object. And from the objects, those light rays come to your eye. Okay, children? First, the light falls onto the object and then those light rays come to your eye. Okay, children? So, to see something, you have to have your eyes and you have to have a source of light too. So when this light bulb is switched off, you can't see anything because without light rays falling onto this object, you can't see any of them. Only if light falls onto the object and that light bounces off and comes to your eye, you can see the object clearly. Okay, children? So the reason is that the light emitted by the candle or the bulb enters our eyes. So the objects which can produce their own light are called luminous objects. Now when it comes to the light bulb, this is a luminous object because it can produce their own light, right? But when you light the bulb, you can see the other objects too. But can they produce their own light? They cannot. We can see them because the other light, from any source of light, the light falls onto these objects only, we can see them. Only if this light falls onto these other objects, we can see them, which means they cannot produce their own light. Otherwise, even without a light bulb, when we enter the dark room, we should be able to see them clearly. Why can't we see them? Because they cannot emit their own light. Okay, children? So there are two other objects we discuss in this light lesson, that is luminous object and non-luminous object. Okay, so the objects which can produce their own light are called luminous objects. Right? Then again, when we discuss about these luminous objects, there are natural objects and artificial objects too. Right? We'll see now here light bulb, lighted lamp. These are not natural, these are man-made items, right? These are man-made equipment, therefore, at the same time, these are luminous objects. Lighted lamp can emit its own light, right? Lighted bulb can emit its own light. So remember, when you write about these luminous objects, let's say that you have to write examples for luminous objects. Don't write just lamp. It has to be lighted lamp because it becomes luminous object or it becomes a source of light only if you light it up. right? The lighted lamp, it should be lighted lamp, and it should be lighted bulb, lighted candle likewise. Okay, children? So lighted bulb, lighted lamp, and lighted candle, lighted torch, they all are coming under artificial luminous objects. What are the natural luminous objects, children? Sun is coming under natural luminous object because sun emits its own light. What about the stars? Now sun is also another star, right? So all the stars also coming under natural luminous objects, right? And now look at this one. Firefly. Firefly has a light emitting part in its body, right? Therefore, firefly is also coming under a natural light emitting animal. And at the same time, another animal called a glowworm, right? Glowworm. Glowworm also emits light, okay? So glowworm is also another luminous object, and at the same time, it is a natural luminous object, okay? So light emitting mushrooms, you all can see the picture. Now we are going to watch a video clip on these luminous objects too, okay? So light emitting mushrooms, they are these mushrooms, special types of mushrooms that can emit its own light. Therefore, these are also natural luminous objects. Okay, children. So it's very clear when it comes to these objects and light, there are two types of objects. The first type we already discussed, that is luminous object. So luminous objects are the objects that emit its own light. We'll write down them here. Right. I'm going to write as natural and artificial luminous objects. Now here I already wrote glowworm here. So what are the other luminous objects? Firefly, light emitting mushroom, light emitting mushroom, mushrooms, sun, stars. They all are coming under natural luminous objects. Natural luminous objects. Right? Then lighted bulb, lighted candle, lighted lamp, lighted lamp. They all are also luminous objects, but they are coming under artificial luminous objects, right? These are artificial luminous objects. Artificial luminous objects. Okay, now we are going to watch a video on luminous objects. So you saw in the video different types of luminous objects. So you could see the light emitting mushrooms, the sunlight, and some lighted bulbs likewise. So it's very clear all those objects were luminous objects because they can emit their own light, right? And at the same time, some objects you observed were artificial luminous objects and some of them were natural luminous objects. So other than luminous objects, what is the other type of objects? That is non-luminous objects, right? Remember, we learned in the topic luminous and non-luminous objects. So you all know by now, luminous objects means the objects which can produce their own light. Okay, so what about the non-luminous objects? We will go see. Look at this one. Think of the same dark room which was mentioned before. We are able to see not only the bulb but also other things such as the bed, chair and table after the bulb was lit. When you go into the room, there are different types of furniture. So if the room is in dark, you can't see any of those furniture. But if you light the bulb, you can see them very clearly, right? But if the bulb was not lit, we won't be able to see them. If the bulb was not lit, if there's no light, can we see any of those objects? We cannot, right? The reason for this is that those objects do not emit light. They cannot emit their own light. Otherwise, even without the help of the light bulb, we should be able to see them clearly, right? But here we cannot see it clearly. All these objects, they don't emit their light. Therefore, what happens? To see them clearly, any type of light should fall onto those types of objects, right? Such objects which do not emit light are known as non-luminous objects. To get a vision of such an object, a light ray of a luminous object must fall on it, right? Here, so if the bulb is not lit, even though all these furniture, the table, the chair, everything is there, we won't be able to see them clearly. Even you go into the room. Only when you light this bulb, what will happen? The light rays will fall onto these objects, right? And those light rays will come back to your eyes, right? So here, light rays fall onto the table and comes back to your eye, so that you can see the table. The light rays fall onto the chair and come back to your eye, so you can see the chair too. Without light in this bulb, there's no light rays to light up the environment and you can't see these objects too. That is because these objects cannot emit light by themselves. They need the help of another source of light. So these type of objects are known as non-luminous objects. So what are the other examples of non-luminous objects? All these furniture, right? Most of the things in the environment are non-luminous objects, right? Let's go see. Look at these children. This is the moon. Can you see the moon during the night time? We can see the moon very clearly, especially on foyer days, especially on like full moon foyer days. We can see the full moon very brightly, beautifully we can see, right? But even though we can see that moon emits its own light, right? It looks like that moon can produce its own light. Still moon is coming under a non-luminous object. What is the reason? We will find out. We can see the bright moon in the night sky. Because of this, you must have thought that it is a luminous object, right? But the moon does not emit its own light. So how does that happen? We see it as a bright object because the rays of light emitted by the sun fall on the surface of the moon. So we consider it as a non-luminous object. Even though the moon looks very bright, it is still a non-luminous object. That is because it cannot produce its own light, right? So only the objects that can emit or produce its own light are known as luminous objects. Okay, children. So the objects that cannot emit their own light are known as non-luminous objects. So I will explain how this happens. Let's say that if this is the sun, this is the sun, and if this is the earth, and if this is the moon. How can we see the moon if moon cannot produce its own light, children? That is because the sunlight falls onto the moon and then from there it bounces back and reaches your eye like this, right? First it falls on the moon, sunlight, and then it comes to your eye. If you are somewhere here, the sunlight, the bounce back sunlight will reach your eye. So you see it as moonlight. We call it moonlight in our day-to-day life, but actually it shines up, it brightens because of the sunlight. Okay, children? So it can produce, it looks like it is producing its own light, but it is not. It cannot produce its own light. It shines brightly because of the sunlight. Okay, children? So not only the moon, but also the planets are non-luminous too. Right? So the moon and all the other planets, including Earth, all these objects, these celestial objects are considered as non-luminous objects. So it's very clear after learning this part, when we consider the light and different objects, there are two types of objects, luminous objects and non-luminous objects. Luminous objects can produce its own light. So there are two types of luminous objects. They are artificial and natural luminous objects. And non-luminous objects cannot produce its own light. So when it comes to these celestial bodies like moon and the other planets, they are also considered as non-luminous objects because they cannot produce their own light. They shine brightly because of the sunlight. Okay, children. So we have completed the first part of the lesson. We'll see you again in the next part.